Welcome, and we will screen share. I'll do that. And then, of course, our bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Thank you. So we had still been looking at, how Moses assembles all the people, everyone, right? Everyone. And to bring them into this covenant and for them to accept this covenant. And so Rashi was explaining some of the phrasing wasn't very easy to understand, and Rashi was helping us understand the phrasing of this passage. And now Rashi, on occasion, he does this, and it's lovely. So he says, I love it when Rashi sort of makes a little personal note to us. So here Rashi is saying something personal to us. And he says, Adkan, up to this point, pirashti lefi pshuto. I've just been explaining it according to its straight interpretation. I could say simple interpretation because pashut does mean that, but unfortunately, as you get older, it seems like nothing is simple. But I suppose it means, it's literal interpretation. Shel parsha, of this portion of this paragraph. Umidrash agada, and an agadic midrashic interpretation is this. He's going to share with us a midrashic interpretation that he feels is precious, and he tells us that the source is the Tanhuma. I told you that is an agadic midrash as opposed to a halachic midrash, and that means it sort of talks about theology is the best way. I think Steinsaltz was the way how he interpreted midrash, because it definitely talks about approaches to the divine, right? Or how the divine operates, things like that. It's much more literary. Here goes. Lama nismacha parshat atem nitzavim laklalot. Okay. Why did the parsha of Nitzavim, why does it follow the parsha that has these curses in Ki Tavo? Right? What's the connection? What connection is there? The fi, why? Because Sheshamu Yisrael, because the Israelites, the Jewish people, heard 100 curses minus 2. They heard 98 curses. Chutz mimem tet shebetorat kohanim, besides the 49 in Leviticus. Torat Kohanim is another name for Leviticus. Means, of course, the Torah of the priests, because it contains so many laws regarding sacrifices, etc. So when they heard all these curses, horiku pneihem, their faces fell. I mean, it means their faces emptied, right? They got pale, they got scared. Va'amru, and they thought, mi yuchal la'amod be'elu. Is it possible to hold up with all these curses? Who's going to be able to stand in the face of all these curses? Hitchil Moshe lefaisam. So Moses began to console them. Atem nitzavim hayom. He says, you are standing today. You're here. Okay. You're assembled. You're gathered today. And this is the parenthetical meaning. Harbe hichastem lamakom. There are plenty of occasions when you ticked off the Almighty, when you did things to anger the Almighty. V'lo aseh atchem klaya, but he didn't destroy you. He didn't destroy you. V'harei atem kayamim lefanav, and look, behold, you are standing, you are existing before him. So that's why the one parsha, why it starts off atem nitzavim. You are Nitzavim, right? Hayom, today. And this is from Sanhedrin, Tractate Sanhedrin 112, the B side of the page. Kayom hazeh, he says, when it says Hayom, because if you think about it, he didn't need this word Hayom for the simple meaning of what he was trying to convey, right? So what does the word Hayom come to include? Kayom hazeh, just like today, like the day, shehu kayam, which is existing. Vehu, continuing, ma'apil umeir, and it grows dark and it grows light. Kach ha'ir lachem. This he explained to them, or here in this, or in such a manner, right? In such a manner, he has caused light to shine upon you. V'chach atid l'ha'ir lachem. And in the future, he will cause light to shine upon you, just as the day is shining on you right now. V'haklalot, this was something to think about, because I'm not sure I fully grasp what he's trying to say here. V'haklalot v'hayisurim, and the curses and the afflictions, mekaimin etchem, they cause you to continue to exist. That's sort of an interesting thought, right? That sadly, perhaps, the adversity actually allows them to continue to exist. Umatzivim etchem lefanav, and they set you, atem nitzavim, right? You're gathered, you're assembled, you're standing. They cause you to stand before him. So, interesting thought, right? And this is one thought that I do have. It's sort of a sad human quality. And this is why I hakachinik so much about appreciation and hope, that I myself bear in my own heart sufficient appreciation. And that is, you look at how, by and large, most humanity lives in relative comfort. Most of humanity on a daily basis. I mean, I may have mentioned this yesterday, I may have mentioned it elsewhere, but you look at things like indoor plumbing, and I certainly may have mentioned that because we talked about water drawers, right? You look at electricity, you look at automobiles, you look at the washing machine, you look at dishwashers, you look at things that have come to help us so much, try to have pleasant lives. And how much do we appreciate it? And some time ago, and I'm sure I'm not the one who came up with this originally, but it did occur to me, and that is, today's luxury is tomorrow's necessity. And instead of appreciating these things, do we really appreciate every time we go and turn on a faucet and we get hot water as well? Hot and cold running water. How much do we really appreciate it? How much do we really thank, God? And my mom used to have this proverb in Yiddish that says, when is the beggar happy? When he loses what he has. Oh, sorry, when he finds what he lost. That's what it is. Sorry, right? When is the beggar happy? When he finds the item he's lost. And it's only when we lose these things, right? When the plumbing doesn't work, when the toilet doesn't flush, right? When the hot water heater goes out, all these sorts of things, right? Do we appreciate how much they contribute to our comfort? And applying this to this, okay? So you could say that these klalot and these yisurim are those moments when we no longer have the things that we take for granted. And it's in that sense that it might awaken in us a certain amount of appreciation. And the way in which people are abandoning religion in such a wholesale kind of way. I mean, I think that there are a lot, it's belief in a divine creator is perhaps the bedrock of it all. But the moment you stop and walk away from this, you're going to wind up with a God willy-nilly, okay? You're going to it's going to be something that your mind is going to try and use to make sense of life. And if it isn't a divine creator, it's going to be something else. And we've talked already about the possibility of, worshiping ourselves, humanism, right? So, just as you can see, this generated a lot of thinking on my part, trying to figure out what Rashi was trying to say. Okay, let's go here. Here we go, another one. So let me make sure. Okay, we just had this. Okay, v'af haparsha shelamala mizu piusim heim. Right. So he says we'd have to go to the previous parsha of Ki Tavo to the end of it, and it says piusim heim. It is also there are also words of consolation in that previous parsha, and this is it. Atem reitim et kol asher v'gomer. You saw all that God did for you in your wanderings in the desert. Davar acher. So another interpretation. Atem nitzavim. You are gathered, you are assembled. Why? Lefi shahayu Yisrael yotzim miparnas leparmas, because this was a transitional moment. That's essentially what this is saying. Literally, it says, because the Israelites were coming out of one leader to another leader. In other words, they were transferring power. They were in a transitional moment. Mi Moshe leYehoshua. They were going to be transitioning from Moses' leadership to Joshua's leadership. Lefichach asa, and for this reason, asa otam matseva. So this is interesting. He says, for that reason, he gathered them together in a general assembly. So, and of course, general assembly means, not specific people. It's everyone, right? Kedei lezarzam, in order to encourage them. V'chein asa Yehoshua, and you see that when Joshua was ready to release his power, that similarly Joshua did it. V'chein Shmuel, and likewise Samuel, and he gives you the reference, first book of Samuel, chapter 12. Hitiatzvu v'ishavta'echem. This is the words from Samuel, right? This is a quotation from the book of Samuel. So hitiatzvu, gather together, okay, stand around, and I will judge you, is what it means. And you have to look at the book of Samuel to see what he has to say to them in terms of that judgment. Ukeshiatsu miyado v'nichnas liyado shel Shaul. And when they left Samuel, this was when they left Samuel's jurisdiction, his leadership. And again, the word yad has to do with control, right? V'nichnasu liyado shel Shaul. And they entered into Saul's leadership when Saul became king. And when I looked it up to see this Nitzavim, right? It's from a root yatsav, right? To stand, and it also has the idea of to be firm. This is my note in what page of the Jastro. The J is for Jastro Dictionary, 588A. And the reason for that, let me see if I can, I'm going to stop this share and show you. I'm going to see if I can show you a copy of the Jastro Dictionary. See this, see if I can find it. Give me a moment here, I'm looking. Sorry, here we go, this is here. Here's a picture of the Jastro Dictionary. So this is what the Jastro Dictionary looks online. I'm very grateful that they have it online, but so there's an A side, so A means it's on this column, and B means it's on this column, just to help you find. So just to have a reference for the translation that I had. So we'll go into the original share. Let's see if I can, here we go. Okay, let's see what else we have. I think this will be the next sentence from the Rashi. Yes. So let's go back and make sure. Yes, there's some beautiful stuff coming up here. Okay. Right, I wanted to find where we entered in on the text itself. So we're right here, Yud Gimel. This is something, again, whenever I read these things, as I mentioned to you, I think of my father, my late father. Velo itchem levadchem. not alone with you, not levadchem, alone, itchem, with you, lo, no. Not with you alone, anochi koret et habrit hazot, do I establish this covenant, et ha'ala azot, and this curse. Let's see if we have anything here. I don't see anything. Yes. Ki et asher yeshno po, but those who are with us, yeshno, who are here, po, right, who are here, imanut, with us, omed hayom, standing together today, excuse me, and lifnei Hashem Elokeinu, before the Lord our God, ve'et asher einenu po imanu hayom, and those who are not with us today. So, of course, this is a beautiful and literary way of Moses saying that what we are reading applies to us just as it did back then. That this is an everlasting covenant. Here we go, Rashi. Ve'et asher einenu po, and those who are not here. Ve'af im dorot ha'atitim liot, meaning, and even with the generations that are yet to come. Ki atem yidatem, et asher yashavnu be'eretz Mitzrayim, because you know how we dwelt in the land of Egypt, ve'et asher avarnu bekerev hagoyim, and how we passed through in the midst of nations, asher avartem, through which you have passed. Rashi, ki atem yidatem, for you know, you experienced, right, etc. Lefi sheri'item ha'umot, okay, and since you saw these other nations, v'shema hisi lev echad mikem, okay, oto, and if there was a possibility that one of you were tempted, I'm interpolating the words here, okay, but it means in a sense is your heart became haughty, something like that, lalechet acharehem, to follow them. In other words, we went through these various pagan nations, and perhaps, you know, there's some amongst you who were impressed by their pagan beliefs, etc., and there's someone out there who thinks that, who wants to take on those beliefs. Here we go, you'll see. V'tir'u et shikutzehem, and you saw their detestable things, ve'et gilulehem, likewise, right? It's another word of an insulting word about their idols. Eitz, wood, ve'evan, and stone, ve'kesef, and silver, ve'zahav, and gold, asher imahem, which are with them. So here we go. V'tir'u et shikutzehem, and you saw their detestable objects. Al she sastem meusim keshe. I want to make sure. I'm sorry. Make sure. She. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. This is two words. It looks like one word, and not only that, this is a mem. Al shem shehem meusim keshkatzim. The reason why they're called shikutzehem is because they are disgusting, right? Like detestable objects. Ilulehem. Right. Shemusrachim umeusim kegalal. They're called gilulehem because they stink, right? They stink, and again are, you know, something that you don't want to have. They disgust you, right? Like feces, like feces. Eitz doesn't pull back words here, right? Doesn't pull punches. Eitz va'evan, wood and stone, otan shel eitzim v'shel avanim. You saw them made out of wood or out of stone. Re'itim begalui. You saw quite clearly. So those ones you saw out in the open, because the idolaters aren't afraid, Shema Yignavu, that somebody is going to steal them. Aval shel kesef v'zahav, but those idols that are made out of silver and gold, imahim, they are with them. So look at this. Notice, right? Eitz va'evan and kesef v'zahav asher imahim. So he's saying this asher imahim refers to kesef v'zahav, right? Which were with them. In other words, they were. Let me make sure I've got the place. Right. Bechadrei maskitam. So I think they are maskitam haim. They are in their, I believe, in their temples, something like that, right? Lefi shehem yiraem shema yignavu. That because they're afraid that they will be stolen. In other words, I'm going to have to think that that this mashkitam has something to do with something locked up. Okay, but I think you get the general gist of this, and of course the implied argument against idolatry, that it just doesn't make sense. That here you're worshiping something that you think is the source of your salvation, right? But you're afraid someone's going to steal it. So it hardly can protect itself. So let's keep going. All right. Let me stop here and mark the place. Let's see if this will work. No, I don't think that's work. Okay, never mind. All right, give me one moment. All right, and I'll stop the share and hope that some of you have something you'd like to share yourselves. Okay, again, like to invite you to comment if you have any thoughts about what we're reading right now. Nope, nothing?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I don't understand. He's talking to the children of the original people that passed away after 40 years. He said, you didn't, actually, they didn't see what went on in Egypt because the original people disobeyed God and didn't go into Israel when he said go. And they didn't trust, they were afraid to go. So he said, I'm going to punish you and make 40 years in the wilderness. But their children, he said, will come and free and go and free Israel. Well, he's talking to the children that haven't seen the miracles that happened in Egypt.
So I have a question. Okay, good question. So I have a question back. How old were, when they were counted, how old were they? That the people that were counted in the census?
The first census?
Yes, the first census.
Oh, wow, I don't know.
20 years old and up. 20 years old and up.
20, that's right, 20 years old.
That was the group of people that were told they were not going to enter the land of Canaan.
Correct.
All right.
Right. So not the children.
So right.
Yeah.
So
right.
Let me ask you a question. So a 19-year-old could well have seen what happened in Egypt. Do you think a 19-year-old would remember?
Yes.
Do you think a 10-year-old would remember?
No.
Well, by 10 years old, there's a chance they are going to remember, okay? 5-year-old, maybe not. But there were plenty of people, certainly between the ages of, I would say, 7 and 20, who might well remember what happened in Egypt. So there'd be a whole population that were people who were now 47, 45, 46 years old and had also experienced going through, wandering through the wilderness and everything that Moses said. So that's the answer to the question. Golda?
Yeah, did it say you remember or see it, or
Yes.
did it say Yodea, which is no?
Well, or
which could have been
understand.
told a
Yes.
story, told the
That's
story,
true.
etc. Right.
It says to
So a
understand.
little of both, I'm thinking,
Yes.
because 40 years takes, a
Right.
lot of people into the 20-year-old group
Right.
who hadn't seen it.
Exactly.
So
So does that answer your question, Harlan?
Yeah.
Okay.
that does.
I'm going
you.
to stop the recording now and thank those who are following us.